Coming up later this hour, but let's begin this morning with the latest update from the administration on the war with Iran and the U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Moments ago, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth spoke alongside Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane and the head of Central Command. Their comments came after Pakistan's military chief met with Iranian officials yesterday to push for another round of peace talks. Addressing the ongoing blockade of Iranian ports, the Defense Secretary warned Iran to, quote, choose wisely.
We are locked and loaded on your critical dual-use infrastructure, on your remaining power generation, and on your energy industry. We'd rather not have to do it, but we're ready to go at the command of our president and at the push of a button. This blockade, which the chairman will detail this morning, is the polite way that this can go. At the direction of President Trump, the War Department will ensure that Iran never has a nuclear weapon. Never. We'd prefer to do it the nice way, through a deal led by our great vice president and negotiating team, or we can do it the hard way. We urge this new regime to choose wisely.
CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us from Tel Aviv, Israel, this morning. So, Charlie, it strikes me that they now are asking to do it the easy way, perhaps because they thought the hard way was going to bring about the resolution that they initially wanted, and that this would be an easy conflict that would end in a couple of days. What did you make of the secretary's comments?
Right. Well, Vlad, my big takeaway came from General Kane. He said, U.S. military remains fully postured, military speak, that U.S. forces can restart hostilities literally at a moment's notice. He said that the joint force had implemented the blockade on Monday. That means all ships, regardless of nationality, coming in and out of Iranian ports, could be stopped. He mentioned there are 10,000 forces that are involved just in the blockade itself, and it includes not just the what they call surface assets, but aircraft that are involved, intelligence, surveillance, refueling, etc. But that is among 50,000 forces that continue to be in this region. In addition to that, there are more forces on the way because there's an aircraft carrier group, the Bush, that's on the way here as well. The USS Boxer, which is another amphibious group with thousands of Marines, also headed to that region, or to this region. And I spoke to CENTCOM officials, Central Command, that's the area of responsibility, as they call it here, that the posture and the rearming and repositioning does continue. They called it a dynamic environment. So they have not pressed pause on military operations. They are ready to pull the trigger if necessary, and they are, as General Kane said, forward postured for what may come next. Even as this ceasefire holds, and even as there may be some optimism that there could be peace talks as early as this week.
And, I mean, Charlie, as you said, right, General Kane did go into detail about the logistics of the blockade, as well as the repercussions for vessels that defy it. So I want to play a little bit of what he said and get your reaction.
At each point, the United States Navy will transmit a warning. A young sailor, normally on the bridge of one of those destroyers, a junior officer, picks up that mic and transmits, and I quote, "Do not attempt to breach the blockade. Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure transiting to or from Iranian ports. Turn around or prepare to be boarded. If you do not comply with this blockade, we will use force." And as this message is being transmitted, as I mentioned earlier, those ship masters can literally see, sense, and feel the pressure around them. It's a finely tuned machine, rehearsed multiple times, and executed now 13 times since the blockade has begun.
So that was some intense sort of language, laying out what would happen from General Kane. What do you make of it?
Yep. Yeah, well, this is an update, first of all, Kelly. We now know that 13 vessels, in his words, made the wise choice of turning around in the Strait of Hormuz. And I have to, so U.S. forces haven't boarded or been required to board any vessels thus far, but the warning is out there, and they expanded that today. We learned from NAVCENT, Navy Central Command, that they're expanding that sort of search and seizure to include contraband, weapons and ammunition. that kind of would be the case in any kind of conflict, that a ship like that that's suspected of carrying contraband to an adversary like Iran could be boarded anyway. But it's just sort of making more public that announcement and that threat to anybody who might be interested in sending weaponry to Iran. So this blockade, and I also have to point this out, they're not in the Strait of Hormuz, although they have said that they are monitoring that area. They're staying out of harm's way, as I understand, as officials have spoken to me. So they haven't got a stranglehold. The blockade isn't on the strait itself, but outside, where they're out of harm's way, but they can continue to interdict and to threaten any ships that may be headed in and out of those Iranian ports.
All right, Charlie Daggett reporting from Israel for us today. Charlie, thank you very much, as always.
All right, let's bring in White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. So, Olivia, I mean, we've heard this a lot. The president is saying that the end of the war is near. Who would likely take part in this next round of talks?
Well, we heard from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt yesterday that the next round of talks could happen soon. She said that the conversations that are happening behind the scenes, those diplomatic talks, are positive and ongoing. And the next round of ceasefire negotiations would likely include the people who took place in it in the first round. So think about Vice President Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. She also said they're likely to take place in Islamabad, Pakistan. And the reason why is twofold. One, because Pakistan has been the main negotiator really in all of this. They have been doing major diplomacy across the Middle East after those negotiation talks fell through last week, but also for the fact that appears to be the place where, because they are mediators, that's where they are willing to meet with the Iranians. Now, as far as when this could happen, we don't have a date, and time is running out because there's really only 5 to 6 days left in this ceasefire. We are in week 2 of this 2-week ceasefire right now, so time is really of the essence to get these two sides to the table to talk.
So the president says leaders from Lebanon and Israel are also going to speak. That is, I think, incredibly momentous. It's this last meeting that they had was the first time in almost 30 years. What is the president hoping can be accomplished?
Yeah, it's 34 years, actually. And last night, the president on Truth Social did say that he's trying to get a little breathing room, quote, this is what he wrote, trying to get a little breathing room between Israel and Lebanon. It has been a long time since the two leaders spoke, like 34 years. It will happen tomorrow. Nice, exclamation mark. That's what he wrote on Truth Social last night. But it is the first time in decades that these two leaders have talked. And all of this is important because inside Lebanon is Hezbollah, which is a proxy of Iran, which, as we know, has been perpetuating its own conflict with Israel for years. And that has opened essentially a new front in this war after Israel invaded Lebanon to try to stave off Hezbollah from sending missiles deep inside Israel. So this entire geopolitical conflict is really centering around Iran and the U.S. right now, but also Israel and Lebanon, and trying to get a lasting ceasefire there. And the Iranians have said that is key. In order for them to have a ceasefire, to have negotiations with the U.S., there has to be a ceasefire also in Lebanon. So the diplomacy that you have seen from the U.S. to get that ceasefire done and settled speaks to how badly they want a ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran. That is really key to all of this. So this peace push is happening today. We are told they are going to meet. There was reports a little bit ago that Secretary Marco Rubio spoke to the Lebanese president ahead of these talks. Extremely notable there. So we'll be watching to see what comes out of these negotiations.
Yeah, it's important context that both of these sides do need to come to a resolution for there to be a ceasefire. Olivia Rinaldi, thank you.